Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-around good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking news, reviews, and discussion from a galaxy far, far away. And tonight on the show, we're going to be talking about Chapter 4 of the book of Boba Fett. We're going to be talking about finally getting a release date and a new trailer for Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. And maybe a release date for season 2 of Bad Batch as well. We're going to be talking about all that and much more on the show. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yeah, another cool week of Boba Fett stuff to talk about. Really looking forward to sinking our teeth into this episode, and it's something warm that I've been looking for. You know, a nice warm Boba Fett discussion, seeing as it's been freezing cold. I feel like I'm reporting live from Hoth this week with the snowstorm that we've had and everything. I was walking to work on Monday after this gigantic snowfall that we'd had in Toronto, just thinking like, man, I feel like Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back. And then I got to work and I announced to everybody, boy, I sure wished I had a Tauntaun when I got here, or to get here. And I looked around expecting a 15-minute standing ovation and uproarious laughter, and was met with nobody being there because it was so much snow that most people couldn't get to work that day. So that's what happened. Anyways, looking forward to talking about everything. It's going to be a great show.
Awesome. And also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? Actually some exciting news this week. We don't just have a episode of Book of Boba Fett to talk about. We actually have some really interesting stuff to talk about. Lego Star Wars stuff dropped today, and there's a lot of exciting stuff happening with that. So we got like a giant trailer too. So I'm very excited to talk about all of it.
Yeah. Trailer week and a new episode. I think we have to get used to this. I think this is the way of the future.
Star Wars is dead.
Yeah. Can you believe people lied on the internet? I can't believe it. Also with us this week to talk Book of Boba Fett, Lego Star Wars, and everything else from the Bad Motivators podcast and the Sith List podcast, we've got Eric Struthers. Eric, welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld.
Guys, it's so great to be here, and I'm so glad you mentioned the Sith List because I was so ready to fend off Araj on that.
Yeah.
Seriously, so glad to be here. I love you guys so much. Super stoked with the Lego Star Wars news. It's about time. That's all I gotta say. My son and I have been dying for that game, and I'm almost too afraid to tell him there's an actual release date, because even though he's 7, he'll say, "Where have I heard this before?"
You'll be like, "There's a release date coming," and he'll just look up at you with the saddest puppy dog eyes and just say, "Not again, Dad. Don't do this to me again, Dad." Yeah. Well, Eric, it's terrific to be here, and I knew Araj would come for you if we didn't mention the Sith List. I feel like you told me that the last time you were on, and I'm like, I gotta be ready for Araj. But before we dive into everything for this week and talk about this new episode of Book of Boba, Eric, I'm gonna just throw it over to you. What have you thought of this show so far, the Book of Boba Fett? How have you felt about the first 3 episodes?
I've really enjoyed the entire thing. Now, I mean, obviously, there's things I have exception with in anything Star Wars or anything else. But overall, number one, there's a show about Boba Fett. That's hooray, all on its own. It's weird, which I'm very happy about. It looks great. The tone is not exactly what I expected. I like some of the things that they've done with Boba Fett. I think Tamara Morrison is crushing it. I like the fact that like he's an animal lover, for example. That's very endearing to me. And his just general take on, he totally understands that, look, this is a business, and no harm, no foul in so many circumstances. I don't know. There's just a really tremendous like softness to him, a powerful softness that I think is really refreshing in a character.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that in Boba Fett of all characters. This character who for a long time was kind of shorthand for just steely toughness. Just like grr, angry, kill, and to see this sort of nice, good person underneath all of that, who still is out for as Ben put it a couple of weeks ago, doing some criming.
Crimey.
One thing I think I really like is what the show has done, like for the Tusken Raiders, and you realize that so many of our preconceived notions about them as a race and about Boba Fett, it's all based on stuff that you've added in your head based on what little you've seen. There's not enough statistical evidence to form all these opinions solidly. We've sort of come up with that in our heads, and that's, I think, been one of the most fun parts. Is not that they're showing you something in a new light. They're showing you something in realistically the only light you've ever seen it. You just made all these other assumptions otherwise, and I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, we're all having to unlearn what we have learned.
I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, somebody said that. Some wise guy once said that.
You're green with envy, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was terrible.
Oh no, that was good. All right, we're gonna dive into the episode in just a second. But Chris, plug some stuff.
That's right. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you punch that subscribe button, Chewy, and punch the like button, and punch the notification bell, and punch everything but Baby Yoda. No punching Baby Yoda. That's not here. But punch all that stuff. If you're just finding us on YouTube and you like listening to podcasts in the car or places where you can't use your eyes, we also are on all the podcast apps as well. So you can check us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of that fun stuff. You can support us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/theswu. And if you pledge at least $1 a month over there, you'll get access to some exclusive content, which is mainly a pre-show that we do before the main show, live and then on demand for our patrons. So definitely check that out. We were talking about Oscar Isaac's accent in Moon Knight just now before the show. So you can hear that conversation over on patreon.com/theswu. We're part of the Culture Slate Network. We want to highlight two awesome other Star Wars podcasts on the network, Star Wars Culture and Eye on Canon. Eye on Canon had their second episode released this week. So definitely check that out to hear our friends Matthew and Joel break down the latest in Star Wars canon, including comics, video games, and the High Republic. And then we obviously, as we're talking about it on this episode, we are in the throes of the season of the Book of Boba Fett. And if you want to hear our immediate reactions to that, make sure that you subscribe to the Star Wars Culture channel. That's where we're doing those. Myself and Hannah are hosting. Sometimes Ben's there and a lot of other people from the Culture Slate Network. And we'd love to take your calls and hear your thoughts and immediate reactions on the episodes as well over there. So make sure you subscribe to Star Wars Culture. And finally, swunderworld@gmail.com is where you can email us. That's where you can send that listener feedback that we get to as much as we can on the show. We've got some good ones that we're excited to be talking about very, very soon.
Yeah, I just want to say, Eye on Canon, it's a good show, good hosts, great show. I've really enjoyed the first two episodes. But I have to say the name is spectacular. And whoever came up with that name, whoever they may be,
Who is that?
deserves a cash prize, I think. I think that person, hypothetically, should get a cash prize. All right, let's let's get into, not hypothetically, in practice, deserves a cash prize. All right, let's get into the Book of Boba Fett. We are, of course, talking about Season 1, Episode 4, Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm, written by Jon Favreau and directed by Kevin Tancharon. This week, we finally see the first meeting of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand as they recover Boba's ship from Bib Fortuna's clutches. Meanwhile, in the present, an uneasy alliance is struck in Mos Espa. So much to get into this week, including Boba's dinner with the other crime bosses, Black Krrsantan's rampage, and the fate of the Sarlacc pit. Something I'd never really wondered about, but when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Makes about as much sense as anything else. So let's dive into things, and we will start how we always do by going around the table, giving our initial impressions. And Ben, as always, we're going to throw it to you first. What did you think of The Gathering Storm?
This was an interesting one for me because the fact is, this is the first episode that I watched of the series that I was genuinely like thrilled and elated by when I first watched it. I loved this episode. I still love this episode. It's by far my favorite of the whole season. But like, you know, all the other episodes, and I've kind of even talked about that, I think, on a couple podcasts. I'm like, I need to stop judging these episodes based on my first reaction because it's always real weird. And like, you know, my reaction to last week's episode was, what the hell was that? So, you know, this week I'm like, give me more of this. I'm actually like falling in love with the show finally, I think. And there's just so many things like, you know, the as you said, the fate of the Sarlacc pit, you know, all that stuff, giving us kind of, I guess, what I was wanting from the flashbacks, which was kind of catching up and showing how he finds Fennec, you know, how that all goes down. And how it all connects. Like something that I didn't even think about was the fact that like, oh yeah, the mods are there and all the mod stuff has been backstory for Fennec to make her electronic tummy make sense from the Mandalorian. And it looked very like, wow, they just like shoehorned that in that she, you know, oh yeah, she's just got, you know, a gut full of metal now. And that's why she survived. That whole backstory, and then going further with the Sarlacc pit, just some incredible stuff, and we'll get into the details, obviously. But I adore this episode. I still think it's the best of the season.
All right, Eric. What about you? What did you think of The Gathering Storm?
I've got to agree with Ben here. This is my favorite episode of the season thus far, and there's so many reasons that like I could statistically pinpoint here's why, but it's more about how I felt after watching it, because that's something I've really tried to focus on with kind of any art is how did it make me feel. And I felt so great about this. It was funny, it was nonsensical at times, and it explored aspects that I didn't expect to explore, like the Sarlacc pit. And everything about it I loved, even the stuff that was ridiculous, the rat catcher, and just all of that. So I'll take more of it. I love the humanity, the character development. That's some of my favorite part of any of the extended storytelling stuff we've gotten from Star Wars or from Marvel on Disney Plus. And so the more of the people we can get, the better for me.
All right. Chris, what about you?
I hated it. No, it's like it was kind of in the same spot as last week's episode for me, where it was enjoyable, but there are a lot of things that kind of took me out of the episode and I didn't like about the episode. But there were definitely some sequences that I did like. Like I did like the flashback scene within itself. Like I liked the whole sequence of getting the fire spray gunship out of Jabba's palace. Like I thought that was really cool, and I thought that the kitchen scene was absolutely hilarious. But at the same time, like I was kind of wondering, like, why are we seeing this and not like stuff that's forward in the timeline? Like, why aren't we seeing a cool scene with the fire spray gunship in the present tense? Why do we have to go backwards? So I think I was just getting a little jaded by how much of this show. I feel like we've had probably just as much screen time in flashbacks as we have in the current timeline in the show. So I think that kind of like it took it away a little bit of enjoyment for me. Like I kind of wish they had just begun the show with maybe like just jumping backwards in the timeline and just showing all of this stuff and then leading up to the present rather than skipping around like this. It just feels just the pacing of it just feels kind of a little bit off to me and kind of takes away from the good stuff that's in it. So that kind of weirded me out. And then like the present timeline was the present timeline. It didn't again move much forward. It's just I feel like we're still getting kind of like a hinted at what is this actually going to happen in the show. Like I feel like they're still setting something up, and I just want to get to whatever it is that they're setting up with this big clash that's going to happen between maybe a Boba and a bunch of bounty hunters and mercenaries and the Pike Syndicate. Like that's what I want to see, and we've now spent 4 episodes building up to that because they've only had 5 to 20 minutes to actually put into that setup because of all the flashbacks. So it's a mixed bag for me. I like some stuff, but then some other stuff I just don't like the way that it's packaged, or it's just I don't know if it's the best way to execute showing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. I think I'm sort of on the same wavelength as you, Chris, when it comes to sort of how I felt about the episode. But I think it was just for different reasons. In that I sort of came away from it sort of feeling just sort of okay about it. But to me, it just sort of all the stuff with Boba and Fennec. This was the first week where I was watching the flashback stuff going, I don't know. I don't know if I needed to see all of this because what I loved about the first 2 episodes in particular, and really it's the second episode and the way they handled the flashback in there, is that they were able to tell sort of a really interesting, really good, really well executed story about what Boba was doing, and it was something new, it was something kind of unexpected, something kind of different. And then and that was sort of carried through the first and third episodes as well. And then this was sort of the first one where it sort of felt like they were going down a checklist, going like, all right, what do we got to show to make sure everything's on? We got to everything we need to on the show. All right, how does he get Slave One back? All right, we've done that. How does he make Fennec Shan? All right, we've done that. And he's got to deal with those biker gangs somehow, so we'll do that too. And he should be looking for his armor as well. All right, check. And so it was the first time I sort of felt like they were sort of like a little bit of a checklist of like, okay, we got to show these things because otherwise, quote unquote, it doesn't make sense. And I just sort of felt like you have this really interesting structure that you're using to tell your stories, and you can do so much with it. You can do so many interesting things with it, and you've shown how effectively it can be used and how it can subvert our expectations and do different things. And this was the first week where it sort of felt like, okay, we're doing flashbacks just for the sake of doing flashbacks and doing them to catch up with it, which, you know, in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but they also just didn't do it for me on like on an emotional level. Like I like this is now 3 out of 4 weeks where I felt like the action on this show is a little bit subpar. The 1 out of 4 weeks I thought the action is incredible and better than anything else. It's the best we've ever seen. Again, episode 2.
Yeah.
And then this week the breakout with Slave One, it was okay.
I literally couldn't disagree more with pretty much everything you said.
And when you started talking, Ben, I was like, all right, this is going to be a good episode of the show.
Well, I think for me, and this is one thing that kind of stuck out in my head. That's like, okay, why does this like resonate with me? Like, I think the other flashbacks didn't really do it for me a whole lot. Overall, like I like the Tusken stuff. I think episode 2 was fantastic, especially with the train heist and everything like that. Like that was great stuff. But I think a lot of it for me was, you know, it was a lot of just visuals. It wasn't a lot of talking. It was more, you know, and obviously Boba and the Tuskens have a hard time communicating. There's kind of a language barrier there, and they can do the kind of sign language, whatever, which is fascinating and great, but it's also not good for like exposition or like, you know, finding out what our characters are feeling, what they're thinking, what have you. This episode actually gets down to business with like Boba, and you get several scenes where he's talking about, I'm tired of working for idiots that want to get me killed. I love that stuff. I love getting kind of Boba's thinking, getting his side of things after all that's happened. Now to actually hear him talk about this stuff and go like, this is my motivation. This is why I don't want to do this. This is why I want to, you know, build a house of my own, why I want to take over Jabba's palace, why I'm not going after my armor and getting out of here. Like, getting his motivations, which is something that's been a big question since the beginning of this episode, since before the show even came on, which is like, what is he doing? Why is he doing all this? You know, Boba Fett obviously was a hunter. Now he's not. He's specifically saying he's not a bounty hunter, and he wants to take over Jabba's, stuff and do all this stuff. Why? This episode, for me, gave me like the clearest vision of like what Boba's actually wanting to do, and I like that a lot. And obviously I think I was looking forward to Fennec showing up, and I think getting her more in this. I feel like the show so far really haven't got that much Fennec. I think we've been lacking in Fennec content, and I think this gave her a lot of good screen time. She was in the present and the flashbacks, and gave her a lot more time to get more in her head too. So for those two things, I think that's what really resonated with me.
Yeah, and I will agree, Ben. Like my favorite parts in the flashbacks were the two campfire scenes where Boba and Fennec are sitting around the campfire talking about what they want out of life, what they're trying to do, what they want to do. I really dug those scenes. I thought those scenes were really well executed, and they were something that was kind of missing from the show, something that I feel like the show has not done yet. And I'm glad we got it. It was just everything around them just sort of didn't quite vibe with me. And I think that just sort of, like with everything, comes down to personal taste. The other thing that you said that I really agree with is that I agree. I feel like the show has underused Fennec up until now. And I would almost like, if we're going to keep this sort of flashback present structure going, I would almost like to get at least one of the next 3 episodes, have the flashbacks be from her perspective. I'd like to see some episodes with her in see her backstory, see how she got where she is. I know we got a little bit of that in Bad Batch, but maybe something that's a little bit more in the present gives us her moment for why she decides to go along with what Boba Fett has done. Give us a moment from her past where she felt that she didn't have to do. There was a better way to do what the crime bosses were doing. Like, give us something like that. Give us a couple of moments with Fennec that sort of fleshes out her motivations in the present. Just in the same way that these last 4 episodes have done that for Boba Fett.
Something that I really liked about how they handled aspects of the story, like in the flashbacks with retrieving the ship, for example, is that like nothing is easy. Nothing comes easy. Here's somebody who we've viewed as like going to be this mastermind and come in there, and he can't get the ship out, and he's dragging it across the wall. There's such a realness to that when humanity is introduced into a character who is got in your head all this extreme swagger, because what I didn't want him to do was be the Terminator, where he's just this unstoppable force that literally nobody can rise against. I mean, there's aspects of that are cool. It sounds like a heavy metal video or something, but to have him have actual human struggles, and it more reveals like his motive behind it, I guess. And then like take the scenes with Fennec where she's being repaired, if you will. I actually had to ask myself what function did that serve showing all this? And I think the real reason behind it is to show that his expectations for helping her, there wasn't this long game of now I own you, you're indebted to me forever. I think he did it more out of goodness, but also, hey, can you help me with this? But then her deciding to stay even after he considers the debt completely repaid. I think that was like sort of an important setup for their dynamic, because otherwise it's just like a bunch of gratuitous, like, here's some really cool music, which, by the way, I didn't mention. I'm glad they are taking chances with that, because that was super, like that funk bass line coming in. I have a friend, Jordan, who plays bass just like that. I'm like, oh, they must have hired Jordan for the session for this. But to see them do stuff like that, but really, I think it's about discovering the humanity of the people involved is what those scenes end up doing.
I like your comment about the ship and how they have really trouble getting it out of there, because it goes back to almost a trope with Star Wars. Like every movie or whatever, you will see like a ship and it's perfectly parked in this docking bay that perfectly fits it seemingly. And you're like, okay, how do they get it in and out of there? Like, how does that work? And like, it goes back to like, I think that was a real problem in like, the production of A New Hope. They pull the Millennium Falcon into the Death Star and they were like, wait, how do we get it out of here? Like, just like, they're just like, okay, we'll just back it out of here. Okay, it just backs up and turns around and goes out. And that's how they fixed it. And it's normal to us, but because it's been over 40 years, but like, it was weird back then. I love this, that like, yeah, they could have made the like, production wise, they could have made the hangar bigger and it would have been a big fight. Maybe he could have rotated out and he could have fought him, and he could have fired the weapons like he did in Attack of the Clones. It would have been so cool. But no, it's not. It's realistic. It's like the fact that like it's too small. it just hovers and it's like, okay, I can't see a damn thing. He's like trying to turn it around and smashing into the wall. It's just like, yeah, that's real life. That's how it would be.
True, very true. My favorite and you're right, Ben. They do tend to just sort of fit where they're supposed to. And one of my favorite behind the scenes stories is about when they were designing the Naboo Palace in Episode 1, and they designed the Naboo starfighters, and they designed their parking spots, and they designed them sort of sitting perfectly in the parking spot. And then they realized, oh wait, the tail would be too long. It would stick out way too much. And so at the last minute, they had somebody add like a little hole in the wall so that the tail goes into the hole. And then they did an excellent job with Star Tours later when you crash land on Naboo and the tail comes out and the 3D and it comes right into your face in the 3D and everybody goes, ah, and dives to the side. But yeah, you guys, Eric, I think you made a great point earlier about the humanity of the characters and bringing that out and seeing that in these episodes, and that's something that I think that's something I think this show has done such a really good job at. Has done just such an amazing job at, and letting us see these characters as more than just their jobs, essentially, right? Like, so often we sort of, I think in Star Wars, we kind of go, okay, this person's a Jedi, so they're like this. This person's a bounty hunter, so they're like this. This person's a smuggler, so they're like this. And we kind of just sort of use that as shorthand for character stuff. And this episode has this whole series, I think, has shown us just that there are different sides to all of these different professions, and I think the relationship between Boba and Fennec, what little of it we've seen, has done a really good job at just sort of, reminding us that there is so much more, that these characters are so much more than just their helmets and their blasters. And I think that's been something the show's done a really, really good job at. But let's talk a little bit about the Boba Fennec relationship, because, it is a little bit, I feel like it's a little bit strange that we're 4 episodes in and this is something that on this podcast I haven't had to ask this question yet. And that's just what do we think of the dynamic, the Boba Fennec dynamic? And Eric, I'll toss it over to you first. Like, what have you thought of the way that their relationship has been portrayed on this show and on Mando as well?
That's a tough one. I'm just going to be right out front and say I really hope that they don't become an item. And I can't pin down why I feel that way. I just don't. Maybe because I want her all for myself. I don't know. But I think that Boba having to rein her in is a really cool idea. She's constantly like, "Do you want me to kill him? Can I just kill him?" and I would have expected it maybe in a way to go the other way, but their coaching of each other in so many circumstances it's such a perfect give and take. Their strengths complement each other's strengths very well, and where they've come from and how they got to where they were and maybe how they were regarded by people. There's such similarity there that I feel like their relationship can become a focal point on the way. I'll take that too, Joel. That's good call there. Jennifer Beals, man, like I mentioned, I was born in 1922, and I saw Flashdance whenever I was a kid. See, exactly. Thanks, Rick. Jerry.
But Rick's comment for everybody listening says Erica's the combined age of the other three, which
it's true. It's all true.
I don't know, Eric. I think that would make you about 100 if that's the case.
I'm not
70 something at least.
I do like to carry on, but I'm not that old. I'm definitely the oldest one here by a margin, but Jennifer Beals, man, she's in Flashdance. She is excellent in this show. I'm glad that she's in there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Boba and Fennec. I love the business aspect of it too. Just like the push and pull, because they're both killers, and just seeing what they do with that, I think, is great.
Chris, what have you thought of their dynamic through the show?
I think I was confused for a bit, because I was under the impression that like she owed him like a life debt of some type. Like, I don't know if I'm getting this from dialogue or if I just have not a good impression of what happened in The Mandalorian. I don't know. But like, I was trying to figure out what her motivation would have been for helping him out and Mandalorian. So and he saved her life. So I'm assuming, well, maybe that's why she's with him, because he saved her life. There didn't seem to be anything for her to gain from helping him and following him around. So it's interesting, kind of, now that they're finally going to that part of the backstory where they're dealing with her motivations, and it's not what I was expecting, and it's still not fully clear to me exactly what she wants. The best thing I can see is that she just sees mutual benefit. She sees that they can work together to both get something, but I do think it's clear that, you know, her needs come first. You know, she's not there to necessarily protect him. They're just in a mutually beneficial protection.
I do think you're onto something there. I think there has been a little bit of retconning with their relationship in regards to, I think, I can't remember the exact line, but when she comes back in the tragedy and she like opens her stomach, is like, oh yeah, he saved my life. I think she says something along the lines of, I am now in his debt or something. Yeah. As if she is kind of serving him, like she is kind of his sidekick or whatever, or she is indebted to him. She is serving him, and I think they kind of wanted to set the record straight. And I think it's a good move on their part to kind of set the record straight as far as like she's not serving him, she's not tagging along with him. It's a partnership, and you know she's choosing to stick by his side. She could have gone, but she didn't. I think it would have been a little weird to have Fennec be kind of like have a life debt with Boba, and like she's with him because she's stuck with him because he saved her life one time. That would be a little weird. I think it makes more sense to say, okay, we did one thing, now we're clean, we're even. But Fennec's like, oh, okay, along for the ride. You're doing weird stuff. I'll go and do, you know, crazy stuff with you too. And you know, I like killing people. You like killing people. Okay, let's do this. You know, you're gonna go kill a bunch of people. I like that. So you know, I think it all falls on. So I like it is a small retcon, but I think it's a good retcon.
It kind of puts her character for me in the space that Bo-Katan was in prior to the last episode of The Mandalorian, where you know, in a lot of ways, she's aligned with the protagonist, but like that might not always be the case.
Let me throw this out there. I think that for somebody like Fennec Shand, now mind you, I haven't come from a background where my job was to kill people, but I suspect in circles like that, she's very skilled at this job she has, but she's also viewed as an unfortunate and necessary evil that people, the employers, will tolerate because they need her to do this thing, but they ultimately find her and her entire existence very distasteful. And I suspect that working for somebody like Boba Fett, who ultimately needed her help with this thing, but it's like, no, hey, you're free to do whatever you want. And he's regarding her more as a person and as opposed to an asset. I think that dictates why she feels the way she does, and like her being. And now I took what she said in The Mandalorian the exact same way, that so she's indebted to him because he did this, but I feel like that's more of a one-way street. She feels indebted to him because of what he did for her. I don't think it's the other way around. So it's because she is being viewed as an ally and a partner, as opposed to an asset there to do a job.
Yeah, I think what's sort of been interesting to me, I think it's just sort of building on what you said there, Eric, is that like if she wanted to walk away, Boba would let her, but she doesn't want to walk away at this moment in time. To sort of put it that way. And I think it would be interesting if at some point in these next 3 episodes, if there was that moment where she was tempted away, or they had a split of like they disagreed on how to handle the Pikes or whoever else is out there. But what's sort of keeping me from thinking that that's likely is that the two of them almost like work too well together. Like they complement each other so perfectly. Like, and I think that dinner scene really shows it, because, she kind of brings the energy that you expect from the crime lord of like, you're here because of what Boba Fett has done. You're only here by his good grace. And if it wasn't for him, somebody else might have just already killed all of you. If somebody else that were in his position, they might already have killed all of you. And then Boba sort of builds on what she's saying and what she's doing, and he sort of, puts things into his own terms, how he lays out how he wants things to work going forward, and and his whole, ruling with respect and all that. He lays that all out, and he's kind of, Fennec kind of brings I'm trying to word this right. She kind of brings the pomp of the crime lord, and then
She's
Boba
kind of a major domo in a way.
Yeah, and then Boba brings the like, let's change how things are done. Like Boba brings the new idea. Boba has the new ideas, and Fennec knows how to present them in a way that will speak to the other crime bosses out there. Because when Boba was trying to do his thing, as sitting on Jabba's throne or sitting on Bib's throne, all the while, everybody was kind of like, should we go along with this? And Boba himself didn't even seem all that comfortable with it. He even says in this episode, I'm not going to take any more tributes. He's sort of like, I'm over that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for something else. I'm here for something bigger. But Fennec's like, no, you still got to speak to these guys in a certain way. They're not interested in sitting around singing Kumbaya. You got to remind them who's boss here. But you also can treat them in a different way. And so they've got this sort of perfect partnership, this perfect balance to their relationship that I don't know, like, is there something that could happen that would, what is the thing that could be the wedge between them? At this point, it's hard to see what that could be. And that's, we're 4 episodes in, we've passed the halfway point, and it seems like these two are just kind of, they're on the same page. They're moving in the same direction, and they're happy to keep doing it that way. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get through this entire season with, virtually no tension between the two of them. That they're just like, yeah, no, we're doing our thing. We'll bring in some muscle next week, and maybe there'll be some tension there. But by and large, you and I on the same page. We know what we're doing. We know what we want to do, unless we're going to do it together.
I think as long as Boba has the palace and uses that as a draw to bring in hired hands, I think that it's advantageous for her to stick around, because she's got this big place to be at. She's got these people to do her bidding. If she needs or wants something done, she can easily use the collective resources to do that. So she's in a very powerful position.
She gets to eat those giant feasts all by herself that we saw last week.
She's got a whole bacta tank that she can use, so she doesn't become more of a cyborg the next time she gets injured. All this stuff. And so I think that really where the rubber would meet the road is if for some reason Boba lost all of that. If he loses a battle and somebody else, either Jabba's palace gets blown up, or he loses control over it and they're out on the road again. then it'll be very interesting to see if she's still going to stick with him and if she's going to consider double crossing him at some point. But right now, she doesn't have a better offer. But at the same time, we're involving all these other groups, and again, it seems like the Pikes are this big, powerful group. I'm wondering if Boba ends up actually being a problem for them, if they're gonna contact her and be like, "Hey, yo, here's some money. Why don't you betray this guy?"
Yeah, well, I'm thinking who could make a convincing pitch to Fennec? Who out there could make a convincing pitch? And we know from Bad Batch that Fennec was active in the dark times in that era. She was just getting started at the end of the Clone Wars, and presumably built up her reputation throughout the dark times and into the original trilogy, to the point where when we first meet her in the first episode, in the 5th episode of The Mandalorian, she's got a bounty on her. So clearly it's somebody who's aware of that legend, who's tapped into the underworld and can appreciate the value that she could bring. And I'm just imagining a scene between Ming-Na and Emilia Clarke, where Emilia Clarke is making the pitch, offering her, hey, come work for me. Let's tease me.
But again, we have to say, that's one of the reasons why, these last few episodes have been interesting, because we know that there's this possibility hanging out there that Akira's out there, that Crimson Dawn is out there,
or some other big powerful entity is out there.
So it does feel kind of small potatoes right now, that some of the biggest antagonists are like the cowardly mayor of Mos Espa and these groups that are easily pushed around, these other families, and then this Pike Syndicate that we've seen been defeated and controlled by other groups before in the past. So there's no overarching group or antagonist to this show that really seems overly dangerous. And so I think that's one of the things that's interesting, is that we're 4 episodes in, there's 3 episodes left, and we don't really have that. It's all been just the backstory of these characters and some internal dynamics between them. But all the plot stuff has been kind of very set-up-y, very first acty.
Yeah, I feel like next week, I have a feeling that these last 3 episodes are going to be just go, 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 action, 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 explosions, explosions, explosions. And I don't just mean literal explosions, fireballs on screen. I mean stuff that we're not expecting, maybe stuff that we're hoping for, things like that. I feel like this show has been laid out in such a way where it's all right, we're going to take our time in the beginning, and we're going to do basically 4 episodes of this weird, esoteric kind of Boba Fett, losing himself and finding himself and rediscovering himself and figuring out what he wants to do with the rest of his life now that he's survived, death essentially. And we're seeing that. And, now that we've done that, now that we've seen that, and I feel like they kind of put a button on the flashbacks this week when they showed the Mando season 2 post-credit scene again.
Yeah.
I feel like we've put that button on it. Now it's time for things to start happening in the present, and for things to just start going go, 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 go now. And and I think that's what we're likely to see. I think there's going to be a feeling through these last 3 episodes of, oh, this is the show. This is the show that I think people were expecting, and I expect it'll start next week with Boba bringing in his muscle, because I'm hoping for next week. What I'm hoping for is a scene that's kind of the inverse of the bounty hunter scene in Empire Strikes Back, where instead of Darth Vader going down the line talking to all the bounty hunters, I want Boba Fett going down the line talking to.
I thought this coming into this episode, the same thing that you thought. I thought this was going to be in episode 3, or episode 4. I thought it was going to be episode 3 too, and 4, and 2. Pretty much every episode. But anyway, I just imagine episode 5, it starts, outside Jabba's palace, then Boba in the back to tank, then the weird effect, film
the grainy,
effect,
yeah.
And then and then it's Boba and Fennec, and they're like drinking at a bar, and then Boba sees a wanted poster for Grogu, and he's like, "Oh well, we got ourselves a job." And then 20 minutes later, we're back at where we were at when he first showed up.
Yeah. Now, something that's been mentioned, okay, that the Book of Boba Fett consider it sort of like Mandalorian season 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
they very much hit you over the head with the fact that Din Djarin's going to be the muscle, or at least one of the muscle that they call, which they exactly. Hey, that's really good pitch recall too, man. But yes, Araj, he does love Rafa. And,
Yes, I'm
It's
with him.
possible. It's possible.
he does. He's got a soft spot for her, man. But I wonder if what's really going to happen. I mean, obviously the show's going to ramp up in this season, but I suspect that the end goal is to get us into the next season of The Mandalorian, because there's been a lot of, what are they going to do in The Mandalorian without Grogu? What is this show going to be about? And I think that carrying whatever happens in the last 3 episodes of this show into the start of season 3 of The Mandalorian, I really suspect that's what's it's going to go toward. We're not going to see a ton of resolve after these 3 episodes. We're going to see it really set up the next thing, which will be season 3 of The Mandalorian. That's just a guess, mind you. I think
we'll get an idea of what Din's been doing, and what he's kind of like, what his outlook on life is now, maybe. But he'll kind of be more in the background. And he'll be kind of one of the hunters that shows up, and maybe we'll find out, hey, he's kind of in the wake of losing his son. He's maybe regressed back into some of his old habits.
Yeah, well, his son's gone off to college, and now he's got to deal with the fact he's an empty nester now. What is he gonna do?
I just want him off in the corner in Jabba's palace, and he's got a holo projector, and it's Luke on the holo projector. He's like, is he eating enough? Did he take his vitamins? Does he get how is he in Jedi training? How is he? Is he lifting rocks well enough?
Yeah, he wouldn't lift the rocks all the time for me. It was annoying.
I told you he was stubborn.
Yeah, I sort of expect Din to play the role in the rest of this season that Boba played in season 2 of Mandalorian. Like, I sort of think, again, we're going to see kind of the inverse, where Boba was around and played an important role, but a secondary one in the last 3 episodes of season 2 of The Mandalorian. I think Din's going to play a secondary but important role in the last 3 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett. And yeah, like you said, Eric, lead us right into that next season. But I'm thinking next week, after 4 weeks of just keeping it small, keeping it to Boba Fett, Fennec, the Tusken Raiders, and a couple of new characters. I'm thinking next week we're going to see Din Djarin. I think we're going to see at least 2 other familiar faces pop up in there. Possibly, Bosk. Throw that one out there. I think that's a likely one. Dengar, maybe we'll get him in there. Cad Bane, perhaps throw that one in there.
Oh, that would be excellent if it looks good.
Yeah. So someone in the chat said Embo. I think we can throw that in there as well. Like, I think we'll see some familiar faces next week.
I believe I haven't verified this, but I am fairly certain we got our first Dave Filoni vocal cameo in this episode.
Oh, really?
So I'm pretty sure the droid that says "You are now completely healed" is Dave Filoni. I'm fairly certain of that. So there's your Easter egg for Filoni right there. That he's gonna.
If you watch the closed captions, you can tell that the droid actually said, "You are now completely healed," and Ahsoka is the best character in this entire universe. They just had it so quiet in the mix you couldn't tell, and that's what I knew for sure. That's him.
Well, the droid has like a hat, like he has like a kind of a cove thing. I think we should have been watching out for that.
Yeah. Speaking of droids, there were a couple of interesting droids in this episode. We had the rat catcher. Nice to see the rabbit droid from Clone Wars make an appearance. And then we also had a droid that I would describe as having the face of a traffic light, arms made out of cleavers, and moves like General Grievous. I love that guy. That guy was like that whole sequence in the kitchen. like that was, I think, as close to live action Lego Star Wars as we're ever gonna get.
That is exactly what I thought too. Exactly.
Yeah, right down to the spinning cleavers. Like it was.
Also, props to whoever did the EV-99 voice, like dead on Richard Marquand impression, like dead on.
Yeah, who has a Richard Marquand impression in their back pocket? Like that's impressive. That's impressive. And then yeah, like that whole little sequence, it was fun. It was weird. It was sort of just kind of one of those things never really expected. But I loved the fact that the rabbit droid was then present at the meeting with the crime lords. Like it's like we're gonna cut away to Black Krrsantan watching this meeting. And the rabbit droid, they are equally important.
See him, now I'm gonna watch it again.
I love that. That was my favorite part of the episode was the kitchen sequence, and I had a thought that Ben constructed very well visually.
Yeah,
we get rid of the stupid banner at the bottom. There we go.
General Fett. I was out of town and I watched the episode. I'm like, that was the first thing I did when I got home. I had to make that meme.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was well done. Well played.
And I like the street fight in Raiders of the Lost Ark moment where, you know, this whole big show and she's basically just pulls the pistol out and shoots him instead of battling him. That was very good.
That was excellent. Let's we've talked a little bit about the dinner scene and Boba with the other sort of crime lords. We've touched on it, especially with the Boba and Fennec relationship. But I'll throw it out there. I'm curious what you guys thought of these three crime lords and the way Boba handles them. Ben, we'll go to you on this. What did you think of this sequence and Boba's sort of manner with his rivals stroke potential allies stroke potential villains?
Yeah, it's a nice touch and then also a nice little twist on the idea of like he comes there and he's like, oh, we need to form an alliance, all this kind of stuff, and we need to mobilize and protect ourselves from the Pikes. And like his whole kind of like his, even though Fennec is kind of playing, she's doing the whole thing, she's prepping for his arrival, doing all this stuff and saying, oh, he could do this and that. And, she's really hyping Boba Fett up, but he actually delivers. And, having the whole idea of like these guys going like, well, we're a bunch of crime lords. Like, why would we, he's a threat to you, not us. Like, why would we want to stick our necks out for you? And he's like, I don't need you to, I just need you to stay out of the way. Like his biggest threat, like, the biggest threat to him is that one of them would come after him, that one of them would ally with the Pikes. And I thought that was a really interesting way to handle it. It opens the door for like, now you've got those guys out of the way. They're really not important. Now you can open this up to, okay, Boba Fett actually building an army. We've been seeing this opening theme of Boba Fett being this loner, being like Fennec Shan, someone who was completely alone, didn't have a tribe, and ends up getting almost killed. And we see him talk about this, the fact that he's tired of working for other people that are going to get him killed. But it's this whole thing, this theme of he makes the right choices. Not always the right choices. He makes some mistakes in the flashbacks, but majority of the time he's making better choices in regards to making allies instead of enemies, and that directly affect him not dying. Like he goes out, Mr. Stapler guy goes out and he tells
They took my water.
He goes out, he's like, get these kids off the street, go do something about them, arrest them or whatever. And Boba's like, nah, I'm gonna recruit them. I'm not going to arrest him or kill him or whatever. I'm going to recruit them. And they end up saving his life. If it hadn't done that, Krrsantan might have killed him. And he continues to do this. And now he's making another choice, which is like just treating these guys fairly. They're a bunch of crime lords, but he's treating them with some amount of respect. And that's guaranteeing, maybe not guaranteeing, but safeguarding that they won't come back to haunt him in the future. So I like that, like, everyone's like, and Fennec, even in the episode, like, the Tuskens made you soft and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's basically directly referencing a lot of chatter online, which is, why is Boba so so friendly with everybody, huh? Why is he all this? And like, it directly answers, like, this is how you do it. He's not a hero, but he's making better choices, and he's not just killing everybody. And guess what? When you don't do that and you actually like make friends, you have a better life and you live longer and all this kind of stuff. And like, maybe there's some kind of message in there we can take from this. I don't know.
Lessons in Star Wars? I never.
When I was young, I used to think about leadership as strong leadership is a group of people doing exactly what I tell them to do, exactly when I tell them to do it. And there's like some effectiveness to that. But what I found as I've matured is that if you really look at somebody's motivation and what has driven them to feel the way they do, and spend less time trying to change how they think and more time trying to figure out why they think the way they do, you can get a lot farther with them. And the decisions that he's making are really based on that. He's taking a look at what is driving these people. Why do they feel like this? And playing to that, that is the smart move. If you can enter any situation with the basic understanding, this is what this person thinks. Somebody's offended at me, for example. I can go in there and explain to them why they're wrong for being offended by what I've done. Or I can just operate from the fact that I know that they are offended. I've already skipped so many needless steps, and that's what he's doing here. He understands, here's why they think this way. Well, what I need to do is play to that instead of getting them to think a different way. And there's like a lot of wisdom in there. And that comes from being somebody who has been an asset, but has been taken advantage of and viewed only as an asset without any like personal needs, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so I feel like the way they have written this to have him operating with these people is, pardon my French, really the baller move here. Is doing it like that exhibits a tremendous amount of strength and understanding, which might look like weakness. But when I tell my kids, I'll ask them to do something, I'm telling them to do it. But I'm asking them so that they think they actually had a choice in the matter. You know what I mean? That's like a little subversive, but and I'm sort of joking, but you know what I'm saying. He's definitely playing to their motivations and putting something out on the table that when they instantly are like, oh, well, why don't we just kill you instead? He knew they were going to say that. It's like, well, I'm glad you brought that up. So how about instead of that, you just do this and we all win at the end. Ace job. That's a really good move because that's what he was hoping for to begin with. He wasn't really hoping that they would join him. He was really just wanting to prime them up to sit on the fence until he could prove his worth.
Yeah, it's like when you come up with like that great comeback in your head, and then someone actually says the thing that can prompt you to say the comeback. And you're like, oh, let me tell you something.
You're George Costanza going back to the same movie to make the same line again in the middle of the movie. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Eric. I want to sort of build on that a little bit. I think Boba might be galaxy braining these guys a little bit, because I don't think that these guys are walking away from this meetings thinking they're going to do the right thing, thinking that they're going to just listen to what Boba Fett said and go along with it. I think at least one, if not two, if not all three of them are going to try and betray him to the Pikes at some point.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's going to fight the Pikes with this hired muscle. He's going to beat them. He's going to figure out whoever's truly behind them, if there is somebody truly behind them. And he's going to save the day, return Tatooine to its former glory, make the streets safe again, all of that. And then he's going to go back to these guys. And he's going to say, all right, you did it your way. Look where that got you. Want to try my way now? And he's going to give him that option to go back to let's work together. Let's be on the same page. We each have our own little territory. Let's keep an eye on it, and let's respect each other's boundaries. Let's respect each other's land, each other's crews. And you've now seen that I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. That I'm powerful, and I can make things happen. But I'm gonna choose instead to operate from a place of respect, and we're all gonna work together now. Like he's gonna make them that they're gonna try and double cross him. It's gonna blow up in their faces, and then they're gonna come back to they're gonna have to come back to the bargaining table with Boba Fett, and he's just gonna basically offer them the same thing that he offered them at the beginning of this kind of awkward dinner scene. That's why I think Boba's thinking. He's playing a little 3D chess. He's thinking one or two steps ahead. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that hired muscle next week.
Also, nice cueing of the Rancor. Did he have?
Yes.
Was Day Trejo down there like, okay, now?
Yeah. yeah, exactly. All right. And we alluded to this earlier. Should we talk a little bit about the fire spray, the Slave One,
Sure.
Why
the
it's
name,
not a big deal at all.
the name of the ship. When he said that, I could just see the dollar signs in certain YouTubers' eyes, thinking we're gonna make so much money off of these videos. I want to point out one thing before we venture too far into this conversation. I'm gonna share my screen for everybody who's watching on the live stream, and for everybody, so that everybody can see. I'm on StarWars.com here, and we're on the page called Slave One. Mm-hmm. And if we zoom in a little bit here, you can see appearances: Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars: Attack of the Clones, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett.
What?
Oh, interesting. So I just wanted to point that out. That at the very least, StarWars.com is still comfortable referring to it as Slave One. Now, here's the thing. Here's what else? Here's what I want to say about it. Then I'll give everybody else a chance to say about it. I think there is definitely an element of they don't want to be calling too much attention to the fact that this is the name of the ship. In this day and age, they've decided they don't want to do that. And, I understand it. I also think it's kind of one of those gestures that doesn't really mean anything. I feel like there's a lot more meaningful things they can do, but I understand where they're coming from. And so they're kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too. And so they're going to let it quietly continue to be called Slave One on the StarWars.com databank and maybe in some books that'll come out here and there. But on screen, they're going to refer to it as a fire spray class gunship, the same way that somebody might name their car. If somebody's a real car guy, they might name their car. What is it that Captain Holt calls his car in Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Gertie or something like that. Like they'll call their car Gertie, but then, they'll refer to it as, oh yeah, I've got a Ferrari over there. That's my Ferrari. And I think they'll have Boba they'll have anytime they want to refer to it on screen, they'll call it the fire spray class gunship, or they'll just say Boba's ship or what have you. And they'll just sort of quietly let it be, leave it there, and just have it there. And ultimately, like, fine. Like to me, it's not a big deal. And I would ask anybody that's really upset about this, if those baseball cards back in the 80s where we found out the ship name, or however it was found out, had said the fire spray on it, would it be any less cooler of a ship? The ship is not. The Millennium Falcon is a great name, but that ship and the adventures that we go on with it, we would still love it if it was called the flying kangaroo or something, like whatever you call the ship. We think the names are cool because of the good times that we have with the ship and the good memories we have with the ship and the fun adventures that the characters go on with it. So Slave One is a name. You can like it, you can dislike it. It's the name of the ship. But the ship itself is so much more than a name. So it's a little bit of an overreaction to modern times. Maybe it's the right reaction. Maybe we'll look back on this in 20 years going, yeah, I can't believe we ever thought to say that on the podcast or anything. Like I get it. Maybe who knows how this is going to look in the future, but for now, I'm content to call it Boba Fett's starship, like the Lego set does. So that's all I have to say about it. I'll let you guys weigh in on it if you want, but I know it's the thing that's on people's minds.
You made a good point when you said it's the memories of the Slave One and what's attached to that name rather than the name itself. And it reminds me a lot of the whole George Lucas ruined my childhood type thing, where the prequels, where it's like the prequels did not change the original trilogy. It did not take the original trilogy off the shelves. It did not erase your memories of the original trilogy. It was just something that was added. And I think it's the same with the Slave One. People have to realize that just because it's not being referred to that way in media currently doesn't mean that it invalidates any of the memories of that ship and playing with the Legos or the Hasbro or Kenner ships as a kid, or writing fan fiction or drawing pictures, whatever people did as kids and young adults when they thought it was cool and they wanted to engage with the ship. So, but kind of larger than that, it reminds me of a situation with one of my favorite bands, Paramore. There's this song, Misery Business. And as you can see, it's currently on Google, or this is YouTube Music now, and it's on Apple Music. You can go to a store and buy it on a CD, wherever the heck you still buy CDs. There's nobody keeping you from listening to this song. But you will not hear the band play this song at a concert ever again, because they don't agree with something said in the song anymore. There's a line they don't morally agree with anymore. And so there's not going to be anything new with this song. They're not going to put out a 20th anniversary music video celebration extravaganza. They're not going to perform it on a live session on the radio, or perform it at a festival or on stage. There's not going to be any new merch put out in their store related to the song. But everybody's copies of the song still there on streaming. People can sing along to it and enjoy it. People can go and watch the music video. There's nobody stopping them from doing that. And I think it's very similar to how Lucasfilm and Disney is treating this. Is they're just, if they had been naming the ship now, they wouldn't have named it that. And so in the future, they're going to refer to it by the type of ship it is, the fire spray gunship. And there's a line there between when that decision was made and the future and the past. The past, it all still exists. It's there. No one's taking it away. But in the future, it's going to be different. And those things don't affect each other in any way and are compartmentalized. And as long as people view it that way, it's not a problem. And I hope that they do.
Yeah. And just, on the comparison, if you really feel you can't listen to Misery Business anymore, you can just listen to Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo. It's basically the same song.
How dare you?
I love Olivia. High School Musical, the musical, the series is amazing, and her album is terrific. Like I'm not hating. I'm not hating at all.
A great record.
It is terrific.
I just did a Patreon episode for the Motivators. It was the music of 2021, and it was just stuff that I dig. Not here's all the music thing about. And I realized I listened to a tremendous amount of female vocal music. Obviously, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. Laugh it up. have fun. But like I look at my entire playlist, with the exception of like 1 or 2 songs, were all, you know, Olivia Rodrigo, Adele, and just go down the list. And I wonder what that's about. But it's funny that you should bring up Paramore, because after the Mod Squad appeared in the last episode, I tweeted, "Oh my gosh, a Paramore tribute band is now canon." And I mean that in a good way, because I love Paramore. So I actually just had a conversation about this today with a guitar student of mine. He's 16, and he was kind of going on about maybe this was an overreaction to current climate and whatnot. And so while we were talking, I challenged him. I said, well, let me ask you this. Why does it matter to you? And as we went on, the short end of this long story is he gets this look on his face. I'm like, what's the deal? And he goes, well, I'm sitting here mad because I realized you're right, and there's no reason to be mad. Like, see, that's just it. You're burning up a lot of energy over something. Now, if Lucasfilm had been like, you'll notice that we're no longer calling it Slave One because we are just woke as can be, I just want you to know, then I could get being annoyed by their decision-making process, because it wouldn't really be about the thing. It would be about them wanting to appear a certain way, as opposed to them having strong convictions about something. But ultimately, Chris, you hit it right on the head, that it doesn't take away from how things have been at all. And I made a lot of these very same arguments to this kid, and which it was funny. He and I have a really good relationship, so it was a good thing to talk about. But at the same time, if you want to think about like Dom, from when, you know, you mentioned where somebody will name their car something, when he tells Fennec, I need you to help me come in here and get Slave One, she'd be like, what? And he'd be like, oh, my fire spray gunship. That's how that conversation would have had to have gone. She would have known what he was talking about. Exactly. And it's I think it's that simple. But also, this is just an example of Boba Fett trying to put a period of his life behind him by realizing that the way he was manipulated and regarded was ultimately not what was best for him as a person. And that's why he's wanting to treat these other people differently than maybe they've ever been treated before. And I think that's just one more aspect of him leaving a part of what it took for him to get there behind to move forward. And I mean, you can take it for what you will. It's a name. To me, it's not that big of a deal. If Lucasfilm were making a big deal about it, I would be super annoyed by it, because you're right. There are way bigger prizes to be won than that, because that's really ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're doing it for publicity, if you will, it's pretty hollow.
Yeah.
So
you bring that up. It reminds me of when Resistance was on, and in between season 1 and season 2, they, you know, all the creatives are talking about in interviews and stuff how Flix and Orca, you know, they're like, you know, they're actually a couple. You know, we have a gay couple on screen in the show. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And they talked about it. And you watch the show, and they're played like they're just sort of best buddies. Like there's no actual, you don't actually see the relationship on screen.
There's a gay kiss in The Rise of Skywalker. If you squint for half a second, you might see it in the background, but there's a gay kiss in there.
Yeah. They've done that in the past, where they've, you know, made a big deal about something, and then when you look at what it is compared to, you know, what they could actually do to, you know, further these causes. It doesn't look great. And like you're saying, sorry, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you like go into any comment section, maybe even some of our comment sections, depending on the show, you will see woke this, SJW that, Disney is all these things, and they're all trying to push these quote unquote agendas. And you would think like they were like, you know, like they're not doing any of the stuff people talk like they are doing. Yes, Disney, Lucasfilm, they say these things, and they absolutely should, about equality and representation, all that kind of stuff. They don't always deliver. In fact, they deliver a lot less than they talk about. But you would think that, like, we haven't even gotten like a main character in Star Wars that's gay. Like we not in a movie or a TV show, not yet. Hopefully soon, but like that kind of stuff. Like you would think that's all we're getting. Like all the characters in Star Wars are gay now. What's the deal with this? Like that's not happening here.
Yeah,
And,
all those YouTubers that want to yell that. Yeah,
but I think with the Slave One thing, it's like this is probably the most we'll see of this. Probably is like this one moment of like him going like, "Oh, my fire spray gunship," which totally makes sense that he would say that. It's like in a real world movie, if you said, "Oh yeah, I need you to help me, I'll get my Camaro out of lockup, and you need to help me with this thing," like. You wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, help me," get the name of my car out.
Samantha.
Exactly. So like it makes total sense in the story that like this is the thing. And yeah, maybe they could have mentioned Slave One. I don't think they needed to. And think of how many ships in Star Wars that have been in Star Wars a lot or are major players that never get mentioned in the thing. I never heard Tantive 4 anywhere in Star Wars, like the Millennium Falcon is the most prominent ship. And of course it gets talked about a lot, but like there's really no other ship that really gets talked about that much. And I look, I get it. I do get it. I think some people get misconstrued of, well, why are you so obsessed with the Slave One thing? I think, you've watched Star Wars all your life. You knew Slave One. That was that Easter egg that you knew you could impress your friends with and say, I know the name of that ship. And you could say that and you knew that. And now we get the Book of Boba Fett show. You want to hear him say it on screen. You want more history and you're not getting that. I get it. But I think also you have to take a step back. And maybe from where Disney is looking at this and going like, okay, we're in different times now. Things, unfortunately, there's a lot of real world consequences, stuff that maybe you think was years and years ago, but it's still affecting people. And, maybe we should care about other people's feelings. I know we're supposed to not care about each other. We're not supposed to care about each other's feelings and offending each other, but I personally don't like to get offended. I don't like to get my feelings hurt. So, why can't we be a little more giving in how we approach these things and, not be so just like, okay, let's offend everyone or whatever for no reason. And try to think about these things. I think ultimately, Slave One is whatever, maybe it will be called that, maybe it won't be, but like, let's try to remember like the implications of that and why we're fighting for this or not fighting for it.
Yeah, and I sorry, Eric. I just wanted to say, like, I can also propose kind of a theory behind this, which is that it has nothing to do with the times changing, and what it has to do is they're portraying the character of Boba Fett differently than they portrayed him before.
Yeah,
and I think that has more to do with it. Like, I saw some, Yanni, I saw your comments about, being concerned about just kind of removing something that's bad from talking about it, and I agree with you. Like, we should still acknowledge things like slavery, and I don't expect them to all of a sudden say like, oh, Anakin wasn't a slave or like something like that. Like, I don't expect that to happen, and the reason why is because it's not about talking about it or acknowledging it or referencing it. It's about whether or not you're portraying it in a good or a bad light. And when Boba Fett was a villain, because in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he is 100% a villainous character. He is an antagonist character. He's working for Darth Vader. He's working for the Empire. He's trying to kidnap and or kill the heroes of the show. You're rooting against him. It makes sense for him to have a ship called Slave One, because enslaving people is something that villains do. And so now in this current version of who Boba Fett is, he is at the very least an anti-hero, if not a protagonist hero type character. He's someone that you are rooting for, not against. So it doesn't make sense to then associate him with something evil like slavery. Like, if anything, he's going to be in this version of his characterization fighting against slavery, like he's fighting against the exploitation of indigenous people in the last few episodes in the flashbacks. So I think, I mean, that's why they're doing it. It's because they've decided that they want to portray Boba Fett differently than George Lucas envisioned Boba Fett, and I think that's more of what's going on than timing. Because I don't think even in the 70s they would have called the Millennium Falcon the Slave Falcon. It doesn't make sense.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because that's almost exactly what I was going to say. That a lot of it comes down to what it means to Boba Fett as a person. But and like there's a real line between not wanting to call something a thing and glorifying said thing. I don't mean that's necessarily their motive, but just on a little sideline, I will tell you this: that so I use a program called Ableton Live for music production all the time, and one of the things they do is like I'll have a MIDI clip that has a tempo assigned to it. And when I have this long project, I have to do this thing where I take all these tempos and I assign them. In Ableton Live 9, it used to be either called master or slave. In Ableton Live 10, it's called follower and leader. Nowhere in the Ableton Live forums were people going, "Oh, I see how it's gonna be." Blah, 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 blah. You've ruined music for beat-based production for everybody now. It's like, but I just want you to know that the decision that drove this, they're not the only people thinking it. You know what I mean? It's not just limited to this. And if you have the ability to take something that might bother somebody else out of an equation in such a way that doing so doesn't affect anybody negatively, that's kind of a win. I'm just saying. And you just have to be really cautious, because people's tendency is to surround themselves with people who think exactly like they do. And that's why they're shocked when other people have opinions that don't align with theirs, because they're convinced that maybe only 2% of the population think oppositely of me. So like sit back and really pick your battles, I guess is what I would say, if this is bothering you a lot.
I think ultimately just the real conversation here is like what could actually be productive conversation, which would be like, okay, why is it called Slave One? Should it be called Slave One? What does it mean to Boba Fett as a character, or Jango Fett? Why was it called Slave One to begin with? And should it continue to be? Because, like, you know, it could be an acknowledgement in the show that, hey, I don't think there's going to be, but there could be, of like Boba saying we have on screen Boba Fett showing up. I think it's Fennec who, like, there's a slave right there when Bib Fortuna is on his throne, and then Fennec shoots her chain and lets her free. Like, Boba and Fennec seem to be anti-slavery, you know, their whole thing. So, like, you know, that's very meta maybe, and very maybe on the nose, and you don't really need to do that. But, you know, you could also, I think us as fans could steer the conversation in that direction of going like, okay, what does this mean to actually be the character? And personally, I think Fire Spray is a more badass name, to be honest, if they were actually going to change to that. So I wouldn't have a problem with it. I just love Fire Spray because anytime I get a call from one of those people, yes, we know about your car's extended warranty, and they're like, what is the make and model of your car? I'm like, so it's a 1980 Fire Spray class gunship. Click, hang up.
Yeah, and as everybody who watched the pre-show last week knows, Ben's address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
All right.
Listen,
I think
I'm just gonna say right now that even if that's not true today, someday it will be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Let's.
2054. Let's go.
All right. Let's move off of this. I think we've covered that enough. You know. But you know, look, I saw Rick in the chat says, you know, if I'm being honest, I don't think the name of the ship deserves this much conversation. It's been inconsequential to anything to the story to date, and it really doesn't matter. And I absolutely feel where you're coming from, Rick. But ultimately, this has been something that people are talking about after this episode, and you know, I feel like we should everybody should get their chance to say, and the conversation in the comments has been very interesting, and interesting to go along with this. And it's just ultimately this is what this is what came out of this episode, for better or for worse. This captured people's attention, and there it is. That's what was that it caught people's attention. So we're going to talk about it, and we did, and now we can move on from it.
Now we never have to bring it up ever again for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I kind of feel I'm with you, Ben, there. All right. I'm sort of, I'm looking through my notes as to what else went down in this episode. The kind of the big scene that we've only sort of we've touched on very, very briefly in this episode is the sequence with the Black Krrsantan in the in the cantina there, or whatever Garsa Fwip calls her establishment.
The sanctuary, I believe.
The sanctuary, yes. Yeah. Sanctuary moon. No way. What did we think of this sequence, and think of Boba going out there and recruiting old Big K?
This one, like Eric was saying earlier about the mod squad scene with Fennec. Also, I had to kind of think okay, why are they including this whole sequence in there? It seemed a little bit extra. So I'm still kind of trying to puzzle out exactly the reasons why this whole thing was showed and it took up so much time in the show. I mean, only thing I can think is that it's just characterization for Black Krrsantan. He's going to be a major player in the future episodes, so you need some background about kind of who he is and how he acts. So as a fan of Star Wars, obviously, I kind of know about that whole backstory with Wookiees not getting along so well with Trandoshans, somewhat for reasons related to the previous conversation. I thought it was interesting that it was Trandoshans that he was attacking. Because I thought it was a pretty deep reference. Otherwise, it would be just random people. And I'm curious, that's a question I kind of would want to ask whoever wrote this episode specifically, is were you being really intentional about them being Trandoshans, and did it matter that the audience knew that there was more there than just random people in a bar? I thought that was interesting that there was no explanation for the specificness of who he targeted.
I think there's a couple of characterization things I think that can be taken from this. Obviously, one, Black Krrsantan is just big angry dude that just will freaking murder people if he feels like it. And and obviously, even though he's someone who apparently got exiled from Kashyyyk and all this kind of stuff, he still has a lot of that stuff, and will literally just more of a showing of his power, let's just say, and his grudges, and the fact that he keeps up with his bar tab too. So that's a good quality. It's good quality.
Yeah, he's got his good things and his bad things. Yeah,
right. And I think for Garsa Whip, I think it's something that she is someone who, we don't really know how to feel about her right now. She's someone just kind of in the background. She's running this thing, and she knew about what was going on with the Hutts. She wasn't forthcoming with that information. What is her play? I think ultimately she is, in a way, and Boba comes in there basically to witness this whole scene. She's kind of another side of Boba. She's another person. Boba really is kind of what's best for everyone, what's best for the tribe, what's best for the group, and trying to kind of keep the peace. And she is a business owner. She wants to keep everybody happy because, having this whole thing go down and someone losing their arm, not very tasteful, and, can cause a scene and maybe lose her customers. But I think it also just, it's another way of she's trying to run a business. He's trying to run a planet, and they're kind of trying to get the same thing. And I think maybe this is, hinting at maybe some mutual respect between Boba and Garsa Whip, and them maybe working together, not being enemies.
I still kind of feel like there's something shady going on in that place. That place is too fancy for Tatooine. So it's covering up something. She's got more going on there. I think this whole appeal to civility, it rings hollow to me. I think she's in league with either the mayor or the Pikes or somebody else. I think there's more going on with that. But
well, listen, I play in a bar band, and I'm telling you, every bar in the world is crooked as the day is long. So. I like that scene. Now, Chris, you hit it on the head. I went back and watched that scene a couple of times because I knew the implications of the Trandoshans and the history with the Wookiees. And somebody did mention, we saw Trandoshan bring in a Wookiee pelt as tribute to Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And the Talking Sith podcast. That's excellent name. But I wondered, probably not everybody knows that. Did I miss something? Did Krrsantan see them like steal money from the Twi'lek server? That's, I thought, is that what set him off? And so I went back to watch it a couple times, and no, I didn't see any of that. It's just he was bent. I do think that ultimately there's more going on there because she is too much of a politician. She really understands how to speak directly to somebody's with him. Black Krrsantan wants to be lauded for what he's done. And he feels like not only has he fallen from grace because people aren't screaming his name, but he also has to pick up money being a thug mercenary as opposed to fighting in glorious battle and all of these things. So she knows how to stroke that ego to hopefully alleviate the situation. And so I'd say there's something more going on there, or at least I hope there is. It'd be a shame if there wasn't. Quick side note, in that the guitar player guy, Rick Villanueva, had sent this to me, and that's an actual guitar, it was made in the early 80s. Where the guy's holding his hand, it's like covering up the logo. And here, I'll kick the picture to the Facebook chat real quick, just so you guys can see it. But it's pretty cool that it's a real thing. Where is it?
Oh my gosh.
Hang on. Go on without me, and you'll see it pop up in a minute.
Okay. I just I want to add about Santi. I spent all of the last 48 hours since I saw this episode trying to come up with a Santa Claus pun, but I couldn't think of one. But I think what I took from that scene, obviously, like you guys, I knew the history of the Trandoshans and the Wookiees, so there was that sort of subtext to it. But what I took from it was, he looked at those guys as kind of they're the upper class. They're the guys who are above him. They're the guys who are always sort of looking down on people like him. And to me, his sort of reaction to them was as much motivated by that as it was their species. Because if you remember at the end of last week's episode, Boba says to him, take it from an ex-bounty hunter, don't work for any old scug that'll pay you, or whatever he says. And I feel like Santi was looking at those guys and thinking about what Boba had said, and was sort of like, oh yeah, you are the guys that are paying people like me to do your dirty work, and we're the ones that wind up getting beat up by a bunch of mods and stuck in a rancor pit at the mercy of other people. He's sort of like feeling that anger building up based because Boba had kind of opened his eyes to what his life really was. And I think it's very telling that after that scene, when Boba confronts him in the street, he's now willing to work for Boba Fett. This is somebody who literally last episode he tried to murder while he was, in his bacta tank. Now he's willing to work for him, and I think he's going to be a big part of the muscle. I think Boba's little dream team that he's going to build, a big player in that is Black Krrsantan, along with probably Din Djarin and a few other people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's the photo.
Oh,
that's so cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, we're about an hour and 34 minutes into this. Okay, check out this picture. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to bring up about this episode. I'll quickly mention the scene in the Sarlacc. I thought that was really cool, and I loved Fennec's one-liner when she dropped the dropped the seismic charge in there. I can't even remember what she says.
Fire
but
in
it
the
was
hole.
Fire in the hall. Yeah, that was terrific. We need more one-liners like that in Star Wars. I think that was cool. But yeah, that's. Go ahead, Ben.
No, I love that scene because I didn't know what they were gonna do with that at first, and like I think that was actually pretty good way to like handle the whole idea of like, okay, why did Boba Fett wait so long to like get back his armor? And I think he does say in this episode that like I was ready to give it up or whatever, but he also like he thought he lost it in the Sarlacc, and he has like. I caught it immediately. I think some of the people were like, why did he remember that? Obviously, he just has memories because he got freaking hit in the head by the Jawas and doesn't remember that he got out of the Sarlacc pit with his armor. So I like that bit, and going back to the Sarlacc pit, amazing. And when they first hovered over it, I'm like, wait, are they like decanonizing the special edition here by showing just a big hole with teeth and without the beak?
Yeah.
Like, I thought they were doing that at first, but then like the whole idea that like it retracts, I'm like, okay, that's brilliant, because for one, it does technically make the original version like make sense. Like you could watch Return of the Jedi, like the original version, and go like, okay, the beak was just down in there, and for whatever we couldn't see it. So, and then just the freaking thing comes out. It's
the jump scare. Yeah,
that
I was
whole
expecting
scene
that.
I did not expect that at all.
I didn't either.
So incredible scene.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, that's like I said, that's about everything I wanted to bring up. Is there anything else you guys want to mention before we hit final thoughts and scores out of 10 for this episode? No.
Banthas are adorable. That one specifically.
Yeah,
Wagging the tail and the.
I loved that Boba told him to go make baby banthas.
That's funny.
that was pretty good. All right, so we'll give our final thoughts and scores out of 10 now. As always, for everybody who's watching and listening live, throw your scores out of 10 in the chat, and we'll go over them afterwards. But for now, Chris, we'll go over to you first. Final thoughts, score out of 10 for the Gathering Storm.
If this season was a 16 episode season, I think I'd be a little bit more keen on this episode. I do like the episode by itself. Like, I think that there's a lot of good stuff in it. And I've said, the action scenes were great. I didn't have any problem with any of the action scenes. There were a couple of continuity things in the episode that confused me a little bit. Like the whole life debt thing with Fennec confused me. Seeing the scene again from that early episode of The Mandalorian that Boba Fett was in when we didn't know it was Boba Fett was a little strange to me because the sound design was different. You didn't hear those like clicky spur sounds. So that one kind of took me out. Like, oh, that's.
I thought you did. I thought I did. Or
They are in there. They are in there, but they're toned down considerably.
It's not as obvious. So that one was. I was like, what's going on there? So and then I didn't understand why Fennec had to get out of her seatbelt to push the button to release the sonic charge, because it's like a button in the front dashboard in Attack of the Clones. So that one I was just like, wait, that makes no sense.
Also, in The Mandalorian, like Boba Fett just easily reaches up and just pushes the button, and now she has to like climb. That doesn't. I love the sequence, but it doesn't make any sense.
This kind of like is stuff that happens when you're not writing all of Star Wars. You're just writing certain episodes. And you think about, okay, well, if I was writing this and this ship was a new ship, I need there to be some type of attention and suspense here. So I'm going to create an obstacle. Oh, she can't reach the button. And that's what's going to create tension in the scene. And like, it makes sense from a writing perspective, but it also doesn't make sense when other people have written that ship and they've written it differently.
Boba just decided after Attack of the Clones, they did an update and he redesigned the dashboard, and it didn't like the way it worked. And then so he put it up there because he thought it was cooler to do the switch on the to reach up and touch the switch. And then Ben, he had this scene happen. This scene happen. And he realized, no, wait, that was a bad decision. You know what? Gonna change it back. So then in Mando season 2, he's able to adjust it so that he can just flick the switch much more easily, and he doesn't have to be jumping around.
Well, that's just like me in Minecraft. That's just
I tell you.
That's just like me in Minecraft and how the button to drop your item into lava and destroy it forever is next to the button to move right. So
Oh my gosh. I have been jumping back and forth between games I play all the time and wrecking the controls on a regular basis. So, Ming-Na Wen is 5'4". And like with the way the ship is tilted over and gravity being in effect because they're not in space, I think that always in.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
I didn't know she was 5'4"
have
on the
a
top of
giant-
my head.
You know
I
what?
did have
Cam
to
is
look it up.
5'7". So was that 3 inches that she could?
It
Dude,
makes-
her fingers were this close. So yeah, that 3 inches makes all the difference.
All right.
Just like the idea of like Boba Fett having like a giant stick in the cockpit. He just to reach the certain buttons.
Well, it's like in The Force Awakens when Rey is piloting the Falcon by herself. She's reaching across the other side to try and, there are certain buttons that are within reach for certain people depending on which seat you're in. But if you're in the other seat, it's harder to reach those buttons.
I think maybe it's because it was out of reach for her, but maybe not for him because it was across maybe. And then he's like, "Don't touch my buttons." Later, he didn't, which good. I mean, good fair point because I was afraid she just released a seismic charge. It's on top of the ship. That's not good. Thankfully it did fall, and the Sarlacc just eats the thing. That was very satisfying.
Yes.
So anyway, that was something. But anyway, so basically I'm just in a situation where I'm just waiting for the show to move on and get past what I view as the first act and be done with the flashbacks and move on with the story. And so I knock off some points for some of those continuity things and pacing things and stuff like that overall. And that's why an episode that had some really good sequences in it to me was just kind of an 8. It was just kind of passing.
Okay. So you giving it an 8 out of 10?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Eric, what about you? Final thoughts, score out of 10.
I really appreciate some of the chances they're taking, and I do think ultimately all of these things will pay off. I really am enjoying the music. I'm glad that they've, and I already said taking some chances, but they've definitely gotten outside of the norm with this. And I think that's something that, for the longevity of this format, they're going to have to do, because you're not going to have. You're just not going to have a huge orchestral score every single time and keep that going forever. It's just not realistic. So I'm glad that they're doing it and taking the opportunities that they have to do it. And overall, I would say, I guess it's an 8.5, even though it's been my favorite episode thus far. It's still far from perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So 8.5, I think, is pretty fair.
8.5. All right, Ben, what about you?
I think, as I said, my favorite episode so far. I was grinning throughout the whole thing. Honestly, it really it was felt like this episode was made for me. And I get it. It's not going to work for everybody. And I get that, so far, I have had mixed feelings about the show so far. This is the 4th episode, and this is the first episode for me that I'm like, okay, I'm actually feeling this show. This show is kind of speaking to me on a different level. I think honestly, if the Book of Boba Fett were a movie and we just sat in a theater and watched it, it would be like, man, halfway through, I didn't know anything was going to happen. It was really slow the first half, and then that second half, man, it came in and really did a whole lot. I think I like your idea that the next 3 episodes are going to be a lot to handle. And I think these first 4 episodes were slower, I think, by design. I think just what it is. But I've enjoyed most of them for what they are. I've enjoyed this one the most. I think a lot of great stuff. It gave me more what I was looking for with this show in regards to giving us more exposition on what happened to Fennec, all this kind of stuff, getting more into the heads of the characters, some great action. Seismic charge killing the Sarlacc, that was a meme, I didn't know would actually make it into the show. That was something that I would like they're actually doing this. Oh my god. So I'm gonna give this one a 9.5.
Ooh, 9.5. Well, I will take all of that excitement and energy that you just brought to that, Ben, and given that 9.5 and go completely the other direction and give this one a 6. It felt like it was going through a checklist to me, and going through a checklist in not a particularly interesting way. Now, again, like you said, Ben, different things speak to different people, and this one just didn't speak to me, and that's just how it is, and that's fine. I accept that. I'm okay with that. But this one just didn't do it for me. I really appreciate what Rodriguez and Favreau and Filoni are doing with the show. Like I said earlier, like I love that they took the time with these first 4 episodes to do this like weird esoteric Boba Fett like rediscovering himself story. I really like that, and I really appreciate that they went there and that they tried something different. Like Eric said, they got to shake up the formula. They can't just keep doing the same things over and over again. So I really appreciate that fact. But I felt like in the other 3 episodes, the flashbacks were used so much more effectively to do a really interesting story with Boba Fett, and it was really deep and really spiritual. And then I felt like I got to this one, and it was just sort of like, well, we gotta catch up to where we are in the present, and we gotta go as quickly as we can to get through all of that. And to the point where I was expecting there to be like more moments of like Boba like seeing Cobb Vanth and being like, I recognize that armor. I need to get it back. Like I was expecting them to even do more of that sort of thing, and so it kind of lost me a little bit this week, but I fully expect next week to come back and be much more engaged with what's going on, because I feel like we're moving into the present completely, and that's a storyline that has been moving very slowly as well, but I feel like it's been very methodical and very interestingly paced out and played out in a way that I'm actually really enjoying. So I love the stuff in the present. The stuff in the past this week just didn't do it for me. Just didn't show me anything I felt I desperately needed to see. So I just sort of come away with that. This is the one. This is going to be the episode that I didn't care for in a season, and that's fine. There's 7 episodes. If I like 6 of them, I count that as a win. So, and as I said last week, I think the show is going to be better than the complete show is going to be better than the sum of its parts. And I kind of expect that once episode 7 comes out, I'll look at the back of this episode and go, oh, okay, I see it now. Or if I do a rewatch of the season, I won't be going, well, I can skip this one. I'll still be going like, oh, I got to see this because it's part of the story. Just not my favorite part. Go ahead, Chris.
I do gotta say, as like a comparison, I would never wait to binge a Star Wars show for so many reasons. But I did find my binge watch through of Hawkeye more enjoyable than my waiting every week for the next Loki episode or the next WandaVision episode, because I didn't have that time to kind of like think about what it could have been. I just moved on to the next thing and got it.
Yeah,
it's a completely different experience, and I think each show is gonna work better or worse for different people, and I think different viewing circumstances are gonna work for different people and different shows. So I love week to week stuff because of the discussions we get to have and stuff like that. But
Same.
you can't argue with the idea that maybe something, when you're talking about, oh, it's slow, nothing's happening. Well, we're only 3 or 4 episodes into it. We have to watch the whole thing. I think it just comes down to you kind of have to be patient and, understand that you're not going to love every single episode. Some of them are going to be slow. Some movies you watch are not always going to be you're going to love every single minute. There's very few movies that I actually love every single minute of them. A lot of them, there's a lot of boring moments. So like you have to treat these shows the same way and just kind of like be a little patient. We're seeing a lot of whining online, or at least I am. And they're well within their right. You can dislike the show all you want, but I think a lot of that stuff's going to start going away in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think this show's about to kick it into a whole other gear we didn't know they even had. All right, quickly from the chat, Matthew Hardy gives it an 8.75 out of 10. E-Man goes with an 8 out of 10, best episode yet. Chosen Nightwolf goes with the 9 out of 10. Talking Sith, 9.5 out of 10. Yanni gives it an 8.5. And that's what we got. That's what we got from the chat thus far, at least.
Did we get Eric's ranking, or was I like thinking about Bantha's when he said his ranking?
You were thinking about Bantha's.
Okay, that's my bad. I completely missed it. I'm sorry.
Finally, someone who knows what they're talking about. Hannah gives it a 6.
And here's the thing: is I very much agreed with Hannah's thoughts on the episode. When we had an immediate reaction, and both of us were kind of like, what the heck did we just saw? And I agree with every point that you made, Dominic, as well. And honestly, 6 out of 10 would have been my initial reaction. But I kind of had the same thing happen to me that happened to Ben. I think it was like last week, where I was like, it might be, or is that, who said it might be higher next week? Was that you or Hannah who said that?
I think Hannah said like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch it next week. And
it'll be an 8. That's what happened to me. Like, I was like, okay, now that I've been thinking about this, like, I did like a lot in the episode, but there are still problems, so I can't give it a good score, a fully good score. But I've warmed up a little bit more than those 6 out of 10 scores. Yes, Hannah, I'm sorry. My memory's not working well tonight, obviously. I completely missed Eric's score, and I forgot who said that.
Jesse Bennett splits the difference, gives it a 7.5 out of 10. And Din, building off of his score from last week, gives it 4.2 out of blue meanies. So there we go. No, nobody knows. Nobody knows anymore. All right, let's move on and talk about the other big thing that happened this week in Star Wars, and that is the new preview and the release date finally for Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. Let's take a short look at it.
A young dreamer becomes a Jedi Knight. A Jedi is twisted by the dark side. And as the Force awakens, a hero rises up to save the galaxy. Relive the epic story of all 9 films in the biggest LEGO video game yet, with LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. Your adventures start by picking the trilogy of your choice. Start with Poe Dameron fighting off the First Order in Episode 7. Jump into Episode 1 as Qui-Gon and his young Padawan escape a failed negotiation. Or start where it all began, as Leia sends R2-D2 and C-3PO on a mission that will change the course of the galaxy. Whatever era you choose, play through the entire saga and experience the hilarious fun only LEGO games can offer.
Ooh, there it is. There it is. So that's the beginning of the trailer. It's a 6-minute trailer, so we're not going to watch the whole thing. But
I was going to say there's so much more to this game.
Yeah. But here's the ending of the trailer with the thing everybody's been waiting for, and a reveal that is very, very exciting to fans of the classic LEGO Star Wars games.
LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga lets you relive your favorite moments from all 9 films and experience fun and new adventures like never before. On April 5th, the galaxy is yours.
Luke, trust your feeling.
When I saw that at the end of the trailer, I wanted to cheer. I wanted to stand up and applaud because I love those first 2 LEGO Star Wars games, and the grunts, the mumbles, as something that's been missing from subsequent LEGO productions, and the fact that that's going to be an option for this one, It does. Gives me confidence that this is going to be the ultimate Lego Star Wars game.
That's why they literally waited 2 more years to release it, so they could add that. They had to, record all those grunt sounds, and that's a lot of grunt sounds for 9 films.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but also if you want to know the real reason why this game was delayed, Polygon has a terrific article about it, and if you're familiar with the video game industry at all, yeah, it's what you're expecting.
Oh,
It's what you're expecting. It's not quite what's going on over there at Quantic Dreams, but it's pretty bad. But let's talk a bit about the game. Eric, we'll throw it over to you first. What was your reaction to this trailer? Are you looking forward to this one?
My son and I have been waiting for this since it was first announced, and it's really easy to think that, man, now we're so far off of episode 9. Have they lost some momentum? And I mean, there's no doubt that they have. But when you look at the improvement, or at least the changes, we'll see if it feels like an improvement in the like the gameplay mechanics. Because we're big video gamers here in this house. I just recently looked at my stats for Red Dead Redemption 2, which I've only been playing for like a year and 3 or 4 months, and I've got like 2,200 hours in on that thing. It's ludicrous. We play a lot of video games in this house, but it's at the changes that they've made to it, and how more involved it is. I'm really excited for it. Those Lego games are fun. They're fun, they're action packed, and they're not just for kids, but it is something I can easily enjoy with my 7-year-old son and not feel guilty about it. So we are super stoked on it. Now, the one tough thing for me to decide is, because we are a multi Xbox home, I like to buy the digital version of games, because the way that works is the home Xbox, I buy all of the stuff, and the family system setup is that anybody can play any of the games on that Xbox while I'm still playing the same game myself down here where my cool Xbox is. But if I get the physical release, which has a really neat Luke minifigure, you can't do that. You can play it on the one Xbox. So I really don't see myself buying it twice. So I'm probably going to have to go the deluxe digital route, just so that Henry can be playing.
I thought you were the guy that bought 2 of everything and kept 1 in the box and opened 1.
Well, I mean, that's the guy I like to be, but man, stuff is expensive.
I mean, it's one thing if it's an action figure. It's another thing if it's like a $70 video game.
Right.
I mean, you do get an action figure with it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I would have to buy I would buy the physical release, and then also buy the digital version. That would be buying the 2 of them. But I just hate to do that if I can avoid it. But I want that minifigure.
It's Luke with they have
blue milk.
A carton of blue milk. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I don't know. I don't have an Xbox to play the game on. I might buy it just to get that minifigure. That's pretty great. There was with one of the Lego Advent calendars, I think it was the one for like 2020. It came with a code, and you were supposed to be able to get like a special character in the game, because I think they thought they would release the game at some point in the last calendar year, but it never did. And now I'm regretting having put the Advent calendar box in the recycling, because I'm thinking no, now I can't get that figure. But yeah, Chris, what about you? I mean, you played a demo of this game. I feel like it was pre-pandemic, so it was like a lifetime ago, basically.
I can't remember if I played a demo. I think I watched.
You watched the demo, yeah.
I watched the demo.
Yeah, at E3 ages and ages ago. How does this compare to what you saw?
Did that ever come out?
I don't think so.
Ever come out? Okay, I always get confused because it's been so long. I'm like, surely they've released it by now, but I guess not. And I guess they didn't get into it in the other 4 minutes of the trailer, which I haven't seen yet. I mean, what they showed was, when you got on Tatooine, it wasn't like the previous Lego games where you kind of you were in stage 1 and then you had to kind of solve a puzzle and move on to stage 2 and then kill some people and move on to stage 3 and that kind of thing. It was like, you're on Tatooine, now you can walk anywhere on Tatooine. You can walk over to Mos Eisley, you can walk to Jabba's palace, you can walk to the homestead, you can walk to the Sandcrawler. And then as you're walking there's kind of different missions and things that you can do, and like a character might approach you and be like, hey, can you help me with this or whatever, like a side quest type thing. So it felt more like an open world type game than the previous Lego Star Wars game. So I'm assuming that that's still accurate to the final version. If it is, then it's going to make this game way more immersive than any other Lego Star Wars games, and it will be really amazing if it's at that level of detail on every planet.
Nice. Ben, what do you think of what we've seen?
It looks really good, and I have been someone who I love the first games. I just recently 100%ed Lego Star Wars 2 completely. I just got back into it. And I'm like, okay, I've never done that before, and I did it, and it was a blast. And I think that genuinely is like one of my favorite video games of all time. And I think for me, those games kind of peaked around there. And I think the one that's actually I think I like better than that is Lego Indiana Jones. Those games were great. And I think there was something about like the way it is and the mumbling is probably part of it. And also just the mechanics of the game. I've played Lego Force Awakens. I've played some of Lego Clone Wars. To me, it felt like they were getting a little too complicated, for lack of a better term. Maybe I'm just too dumb to play Lego Star Wars, anymore. But I think it is designed for kids, and I feel like if I'm an adult and I'm having problems with this, maybe it is a little too complicated. This obviously looks way more, in depth and way more complicated than the original games, obviously, and we would be disappointed if it wasn't. This feels better to me. It looks better. It's obviously way different. There's health bars against some of the characters. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. I think it looks really good. And it looks completely different, obviously, in how they're setting this up and how you can kind of travel between planets. And there's not just going to be like one straight path. And that's what I like doing all the stuff that I did with Lego Star Wars 2, which is like playing each level over and over and over again. You can only go one path, normally speaking. This like bringing up the idea that like you can take multiple paths within a level and do all these different things, and there'll be more Easter eggs to explore and whatever. That's really cool. I think that'll make the playability a lot more like immersive and also just like make you want to keep playing it. Because you got to get that last mini kit and that last power brick or whatever they're going to have in this new game. And it just looks beautiful. Like, and being able to kind of explore stuff, and maybe not everything's going to be in a level. You could just go to Dakar or whatever else, or Octo or whatever. Like, it looks really cool. So yeah, I guess I got to get a next gen console, guys. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm feeling in the same boat, Ben. Like the Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. I remember getting that game for my PlayStation Portable back in the day and just playing it to death. And I have nowhere near the 100% that you have accomplished there. So I tip my cap to you. But I remember thinking like this is a really, really fun game. And I remember like sort of feeling like I want a version of this that is everything. And I remember they released the complete saga version that was just basically the first game and the second game in one. And I remember trying to play that on the Wii, and sort of being like, oh, this is good, this is fun, but I'd like something new. I'd like something that takes what's been done and builds on it. And then I remember playing the Clone Wars one, and there were elements of the Clone Wars that I really liked, and then there were other elements that felt really gimmicky. And I didn't play the Force Awakens one because that was after I quit video games. And this feels like it's going to be the game that gets me back into playing video games in some format. I'd love it if this could be released on like PC or something, so I don't have to get a completely new console. But I suspect that that's not the case, although I don't know. But this is the first Star Wars game in a while, more so than Battlefront, more so than Jedi Fallen Order, more so than Squadrons, that I'm looking at going like, I really want to play this, and I'm really excited. And I will admit, it's fully nostalgia, fully nostalgia. That's drawn me back into this one. But this is one of those things I'm nostalgic for, and I want to play it again. So I'm looking forward to this. I thought the sort of 6-minute overview that they released today it has me excited, has me hyped for this game.
I'm seeing at least the platforms listed on Wikipedia, which again is not always the best source. But on Wikipedia, it's got PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and also Nintendo Switch and Microsoft Windows.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think y'all necessarily are going to need to buy like a $500 next gen console that is impossible to get.
You don't need to, but you should.
It'll definitely be the best experience. But yeah, if you have I will say I will give a caveat to the Windows one. With my experience playing games on Windows, not all Windows are equal, and you definitely need a computer that is made for playing video games. If you're going to play a new video game on Windows, it's not like the old Sims games where
that's my problem. That's my problem because I can't remember the computer I'm using right now. I've had for like 10 years, and I can't remember. I think it was a previous computer I had. Original Lego Star Wars 2 on PC. I played that to death, and my computer could handle it for the most part until I got to the indoor level in Return of the Jedi, and it was a long level, and my computer couldn't handle it, and it ran really slow, and it really annoyed me. So, like, recently, the one I 100%ed is a PS2 version. Because I was like, I'm not doing that again. I want to get a console version.
Yeah, some good. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Continue, Erica. I got another point to make.
No, it's with people who don't realize the best graphics you're ever going to get in a video game are going to be on PC. And if people who are outside of the video gaming circles probably don't realize that, but it's by far PC is always going to be the best graphics because you have the best dedicated video hardware. But that's also what will wreck you from being able to play it. I was trying to play the Complete Saga one. That's the combination of the first two on Steam on my Windows laptop that's a desktop replacement, and it's spec wise it should be able to do it no problem, and it was clunky and laggy as can be. And it's a Lego game, so this new one would destroy that Windows machine I have. You got to have something good, and that's where the consoles come in, that they're streamlined to only do this one thing, and they do them quite well.
Yeah. I would recommend, if this is the game that you're going to be playing and you're not interested in Battlefront or any future online Star Wars games, because there's probably going to be many, many online Star Wars games in the future, I would recommend Nintendo Switch. Because
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
because for multiple reasons. One, it's the least expensive option. Two, it's both high enough graphics to work with a TV. You can put it in a dock and play it on a TV, but then you can also portably bring it with you anywhere.
And I was thinking that as well, because like I said, my nostalgia goes back to the PlayStation Portable. Yeah. And so I had the idea of being able to sit around, with something that fits in my hands like that. Again, that's very enticing to me.
Okay, somebody stop me from ordering a Nintendo Switch tonight, please. Somebody stop me right now.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous conversation we're having here.
I tell you, if something happens, if things in the world get worse, and they cancel Celebration, all that money I was going to blow on Celebration will be up for grabs, and I don't know, maybe.
You're giving me ideas now. Jeez.
Let me be clear. I don't want them to cancel Celebration. That's the last thing I want. I desperately want Celebration to go forward.
Let's all. I mean, I hate that people are getting sick, but if we're gonna get sick, let's all get sick now and be done by May.
Already done my part. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh boy. I hope it can happen. I hope Celebration can happen. All right. One final story. And any other final thoughts on Lego Star Wars, or should we go to our next story?
This release date is real, and when they said April, I had a mini heart attack, and so they said 5th. Right.
Not like us again. Actually, it's fine.
April 1st.
Don't look, please. TT Games, whoever's working on it, don't overwork your people. Just let them make a good game. we'll wait for it. Okay, don't keep abusing your workers.
All right. All right. Final story. This is about what might be coming next to Disney Plus on when it comes to Star Wars. Although I will say that this graphic, this lower third graphic we've got here, I'm going to call clickbait on ourselves. We do not have a date. We do not have a date. We have
technically, though. Technically,
we don't. A date is a specific date. It's we have a release.
Hold on.
It's in the area.
You know what? This might have been my fault because I already had that for the.
No. I am dying.
Time.
I am dying on
Okay,
this.
hold on.
Okay, it's not. We don't have a time either.
Okay.
We have a window. We have a window.
Okay. There you go.
Season. Okay. Acceptable. Okay. So now the graphic says Bad Batch premiere season in all caps revealed. This is from the latest issue of Star Wars Insider. They've got a little coming soon bar on the right-hand side of one of the pages, and somebody took a picture of that and posted it on the internet. And in it says the Bad Batch season 2 starring D. Bradley Baker and Michelle Ang, Disney Plus, spring 2022. For everybody who is watching, there it is. There's the picture right in the middle of the screen. So spring 2022 for Bad Batch. Obviously very excited to talk some more about Bad Batch and to see more about it when it comes out. Eric, what did you think of the Bad Batch? I don't know if we had a chance to talk to you about it much. What did you think of Bad Batch?
I loved it. I didn't expect to be so emotionally invested in the characters and their story. When they were part of the final season of Clone Wars, I was like, meh, okay. But I was hooked right away, and the care that they handled all of that with, and loving Omega so much, and just watching the honor that they had for each other. That show is something really special. And if you've not given Star Wars animation a fair try, give that one a go. I really, there's everybody can have an opinion, and it's very easy as Star Wars fans or fans of anything to be shocked when other people don't think that same way. How can you not hate this? This is the worst thing. What are you blind? This is the best thing ever. This is something that I feel like just about anybody could find something that they like about this series.
I agree. And it helps that there were so many episodes in that first season that they could go off in so many different directions and try different things.
Yeah.
And you could really, if 1 week wasn't doing it for you, well, there were 15 other weeks. There was still plenty more you could sink your teeth into.
And they did a good job of the episodes not being formulaic, and to the point where it was like the big bad of the week. It wasn't anything like that. It was a good cohesive story where every episode could still stand on its own as something you could watch and get something out of. So
absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. So I have two things I want to mention or bring up about season 2 of the Bad Batch. Two things I'm wondering about. Number one is obviously, when will this release in relation to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show? Are we going to have two shows on at the same time? Because spring 2022, that could mean anything from late March until, let's say, about early June. And, the conventional wisdom, let's say, of Star Wars fans has pegged May 4th as the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Which is literally in the middle of that period.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, might we see some overlap? Maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be pushed. It's not going to come out May 4th like everybody thinks. Honestly, you know what? Obi-Wan Kenobi should come out May 25th. I'm just going to say it. Shouldn't come out May 4th. It should come out May 25th. It should go for the 45th anniversary of Star Wars. I'm promoting that idea. I think that's when it should release instead of, because it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, man. He was in the first step. He's in the original film like this, and this is setting up where he is in the original film. I feel like there's a connection to be made there. And May 25th, much like May 4th, is a Wednesday. So there you go. But regardless, so if Kenobi and Bad Batch are going to be on at the same time, like, are we going to have a situation where we have a Bad Batch episode and a Kenobi episode releasing on the same day? Because that would be crazy. That'll crazy good, but that'll also
I can't even fathom it.
yeah,
Wow.
that'll also create a whole other level of problems for this podcast. Because we're gonna have to get used to doing 3 or 4 hour shows.
Think of that. We spent 2 hours on one episode. What's going to happen when there's 2 episodes to talk about?
Exactly. But then this is the other thing, and maybe this will play into the fact that both shows will be released in the same season, so to speak. I'm wondering, and I don't know if there's no reason to really wonder this, but I can't help but wonder it. Bad Batch season 1 was 16 episodes. Is season 2 also going to be 16 episodes? I could envision a situation where the powers that be at Disney went to the people that make the Bad Batch and said to them this: thank you for making 16 episodes last year. We had no other Star Wars content releasing in that calendar year except 1 episode of Book of Boba, 1 day of Visions, and 1 Lego Star Wars special. Thank you for doing that. But in 2022, we have the Book of Boba Fett. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi. We have Andor. We might even have some Mando. We don't need 16 weeks from you. How would you feel about doing 12? Or even, how would you feel about doing 8?
Yeah.
I don't know if that happened. I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility that maybe this season might be a little bit shorter.
And the other thing too is I think we're expecting Kenobi to be not that many episodes. I don't know if anyone's officially said how many, but I've gotten the gist that it's going to be like way less than 8.
I feel like the vibe that I'm feeling from what's being said about is somewhere in the range of 4 to 6.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. So I wouldn't be surprised based on when we expect Kenobi to happen, which is in the middle of the spring. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a little bookend thing and they have 8 episodes of the Bad Batch and then 4 to 6 episodes of Kenobi and then bring back to the final 8 episodes of the Bad Batch.
That's just what I was thinking too.
That would make the most sense
crazy
for me how to handle that, because despite the situation where there are all these new shows, there's still not 52 episodes worth of shows. They're not enough for them to scale back one show. So the fact that they're not putting the Bad Batch out immediately after the Book of Boba Fett shows me that they might have it going later into the year.
Didn't we do some math at one point where we figured out how it was theoretically possible for there to be like 50 weeks or something ridiculous?
It is. Once we hit the season, a few more season 2s of things.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. I think.
I think so. Yeah. I really like that idea. 8 Bad Batch, 4 to 6 Kenobi, 8 more Bad Batch. Because one thing we talked a little bit about last season with the Bad Batch is, when TV was dictated by the network schedules, you got to do fun things like mid-season finales. And, it's a manufactured sort of thing in the story, but it was kind of fun. And I always liked those with Rebels and things and Clone Wars and stuff like that and other shows. So that they could do that again with Bad Batch and, after 8 episodes, have a little mini cliffhanger and say, come back in 6 weeks to find out what happens next. Oh, and by the way, during those 6 weeks, watch Obi-Wan Kenobi every Wednesday on Disney Plus.
And the timeline of the Bad Batch and the timeline of Kenobi aren't too removed from each other.
True.
And so you could very, very likely end up with some type of interplay between those 2 shows. That would be my dream scenario, is if they had 8 episodes to set up some stuff that kind of had implications for Kenobi as well, then went to Kenobi and then maybe tied some Kenobi stuff into the Bad Batch. So for example, one big one, a character that has been extremely neglected in Star Wars is Commander Cody. Extremely neglected. So I'm always hearing rumblings and rumors that, Commander Cody's going to show up at some point. I've been hearing this for years, but we just don't know when and where or how, and it hasn't happened yet. And I'm thinking like both Kenobi and Bad Batch are prime locations for Commander Cody to show up, because Commander Cody would have a really interesting interplay with the Bad Batch, because they're both clones. And then he has that whole thing with Kenobi about he tried to kill him, but did he? Or was he being controlled? Was he one of those clones that would have done it anyway, like Crosshair? Or is he more like Rex? And so, I think that would be really cool. So again, here's me hyping up these shows just like Boba Fett, so I'll hate them when they come out. But that's what I would do.
That would be cool. That would be cool. All right, I think I think that's it for the news for this week. We've this has been a week where if it weren't for Book of Boba, I feel like we would have done a much deeper deep dive on Lego Star Wars. But because there's so much going on, we gotta we gotta just do as much. We gotta cram as much in there and keep the focus on the stories that are available for the time being. But I know we did some listener feedback last week, and we said that there would be more to come in weeks ahead, and that is still the case. We will get to more listener feedback. So Jeff 2, Joel, Tony, and Nate, we've got your emails. We'll get to them, if not next week, then on a future show. So keep sending them in, swunderworld@gmail.com.
Just like
if
that
you want
Lego Star Wars release date, it'll come.
Yeah.
2 years later. Here's your email. We're reading your email about episode 4 of the Book of Boba Fett.
Joel, I know we said back in 2022 we'd get to your email. It's 2025 now. I promise we're going to get to it next week.
Yeah, exactly. Again, so swunderworld@gmail.com if you want to write in. We will get to them eventually. But I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right, so that'll do it for this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We want to thank everybody for watching live on YouTube. And if you want to join in on the fun over there, you can do that every week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific over on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. And that's also where you can watch the show later on demand in video format. And we want to thank everybody as well for listening on your favorite podcast apps. We'll be back with another show next week. In the meantime, at the SWU is where you can follow us on social media for the latest breaking Star Wars news and updates. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure, as always. Great fun breaking down this episode of the Book of Boba Fett, even though it wasn't my favorite. I still love talking about him. That's something that only Star Wars can accomplish, at least with me. So, great fun talking about it. Eric, thanks so much for being on, and I can't wait to come back next week and talk some more Boba Fett and do all this again in 7 days' time.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. You are the best dudes.
Oh, no, you're the best, man. Let people know where they can check out your stuff.
Listen to my podcast, The Bad Motivators, I guess, and check me definitely out on the Sith list. Can't have Raj get mad. Follow me on Twitter at Eric Strahlers, where I tweet like once a week, usually about Taylor Swift. So
nice.
That's the best way to go about handling Twitter. Once a week, and usually about Taylor Swift.
Yep.
Awesome. So at that Dominic J25, at Eric Strothers, STROTHERS for those that are listening. That's where you can find him and check out the Bad Motivators as well.
And the Sith list.
And the Sith list. That was got to do the order there. The order of tenure.
Mirage somewhere is like, okay.
And the Sith list. Amazing show. You can find it right here on YouTube. Cool. We want to remind everybody that patreon.com/theswu is where you can find exclusive items and bonus content related to our podcast. And $1 a month will get you the exclusive content, and we have other levels for some exclusive merchandise as well that you can find over there. So patreon.com/theswu. SWU is where you can check all that out. And we want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Star Wars Culture channel on YouTube so you don't miss those immediate reactions that we do to the Book of Boba Fett in the middle of the night or early morning or just at a normal time of day for those lucky enough to live in the Eastern Hemisphere. So check that out over on the Star Wars Culture YouTube, and please subscribe and review on podcast apps. That helps us out a lot, especially Apple Podcasts, which has a lot of review driven algorithms over there. So definitely appreciate any reviews that we get over on Apple Podcasts. So that's it. We'll be back next week for Dominic and Ben and Eric and the other fantastic contributors we have here at the Star Wars Underworld. My name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.